Hi. Um, I'm not necessarily a great fan, or I've not been a super expert on the data center business per se, but there are a couple of things that I have done in the past with respect to data centers from a project perspective kind of got me involved into this quite a lot. Plus, currently with all the AI activity and there's so much of data explosion that everybody's talking about, the impact on the data center is going to be even more than anyone ever imagined. And telcos worldwide are struggling to get a handle on this and figure out how it should be done. Plus, there's this entire new thing about AI data centers, which is triggered by NVIDIA and others, which is going to explode that space even further. So we're going to have maybe sometimes a data center in a city or a city that's full of data centers type of a thing. That's the level of imaginary stuff that can happen. However, this particular video is just talking about a couple of things that I noticed recently, and I just wanted to bring this up here. This particular screen image that you're seeing right now is actually Microsoft's first underwater seabed-based data center that was conceptualized about 10 years ago, maybe 10, 11 years ago. And then, actually, after a lot of research and several millions of dollars, they managed to put this into the sea and launch it on the bed of the sea. And the entire details about this is actually on a very good video that the link of which you can see it on screen. It's on the Microsoft site. It's been documented very well. Take a look at that. Now, so for those that are not entirely aware about this, I'll just spend a minute or two explaining exactly what this was about. Now, data centers are highly power consumptive. They have all the elements of, component failure, software, power, temperature, humidity, and all of these physical factors that can come into play. And that can actually cause an impact on the whole operation. Plus, the value of the data that's actually being stored there, plus the backups that are required, and the disaster management that needs to be done from a space perspective. uh, these factors bring in several engineering challenges, and all of these, in many cases, have already been taken care to the extent possible. And this entire science and space and construction of this has evolved over time in the last 10 years significantly. Now, one of the things that always bothered the engineering operations of the data center was that is it possible for us to bring down the power consumption of the data center so that it can become much more efficient? And to check that, one of the things that came up as an off from whatever I read on the Microsoft blog site, it says that it came out of one of the Microsoft Think, offsite discussions where somebody came up with the idea that data centers should perhaps be located under the sea, so it could actually generate a far more efficient data center operation from that perspective, as long as the physical challenges and parameters of temperature and others were taken care of. So Microsoft went ahead and did that. They did a detailed study. They put together a complete container with about 860 odd servers, if I'm correct. Put them all together, sealed it off, with all the necessary precautions, backups, and everything taken care. Hauled it into, I believe it is the off the coast of Scotland, and put it in about 117 or 127 feet under the surface on the bed of this ocean, and left it there for 2 years. And the thing was actually working very well. This is a picture that on the screen, what you're seeing is actually the arrangements that were being made to actually take this data center and put it up. This is during the time of the actual installation under the sea. So moving forward, what happened? This picture actually now shows you how it really looked, and it's a massive structure. We don't know exactly what it costed them, and so on. And this story is not very new. I'm talking a little bit about history, but exactly what happened and why I'm talking about this, you will know in the next minute or so. So this entire thing ran for two plus years, and the when it came out, one of the things that we know is that it was actually very successful. In fact, it is said in one of the interviews with the engineers that the data center was live and on even at the point when it was being lifted from under the bed and brought to the surface, and the entire connectivity and servers and everything were running perfectly well. Of course, you would imagine it didn't look like this anymore. It was completely covered with seaweed, and lots of things were corroded, and all of that. But there were all the necessary precautions being taken, including precautions with respect to material failure and all of that, as you would imagine a project of this kind would actually gone through. So having done all of that, one of the things that came out last week, no, about 2 weeks ago, from one specific organization, the link of which is also on the screen. You can go and check out the release. And they spoke to the Microsoft head of cloud operations. They actually came back and said that the project has been shelved. Now, we don't know officially what the reason was, but I thought the data center under the sea was a very cool idea. And I was actually waiting somewhat eagerly to see exactly where this would go. Because imagine, I don't know how many of you have seen pictures, but our ocean beds are actually littered with fiber optic cables, submarine undersea fiber optic cables, which are carrying orangutans of data, all our data, the social media data and other kinds of data is actually hitting the data center wherever, whichever is serving you at that particular moment or this particular call. And from that, some point it gets off onto the um, undersea fiber optic bed of networks, and then from there it goes to the destination and so on, because these servers are located across the world from the perspective of ensuring data speeds are optimized and costs are taken care of. So that being the case, I was imagining that there would be a world down the road where it's not only the bed of fiber optic cables and undersea submarine network, but also a network of data centers that would be sitting there. From my understanding, also Google has done this once before. We don't know exactly what the state. These are somewhat secretive projects. We don't know, and they're also experimental in nature. So these corporations do not want to create wrong messages or send out different types of experimental information unverified and unproven. So, point really about this particular message, is, whatever I've talked about till now, is that this project actually has gone under the radar, is no longer going to be talked about, may have been actually shelved unless any official information from Microsoft comes out. But at this point, I'd like to say that an interesting project which actually proved itself, because compared to the number of servers that were under the sea, the failure rate there was much lower than even a smaller number of servers that were on land that could be of a comparable status. So end of that project, and I just want to go over to one other aspect which might be of interest. And here you see this data has been sourced from a company called CoreLogic. Now, this is an entirely different thing, unconnected to the data center under the sea aspect, but I thought I would use this opportunity to give you an update anyway. Now, it's very interesting where, so how this is shaping up and the reason this is being covered here. Now, as you can imagine, the data flow and where the data center needs to be located next, where the next set of fiber optic cables have to be installed, where the broadband expansion has to happen depends on a number of things, including where cities are growing, where new suburbs are coming up, where new buildings are coming up, where new corporate offices, campuses are coming up, and where human settlement is increasing so that data can actually reach them. Now, interestingly, this company called CoreLogic.com, which you can check them out, and there's their proprietary information, which I'm carrying with a complete link to their site and the video. Last week, I believe they had this RCR wireless based sponsored, hosted webinar, which I was invited to. And there they're talking about AI based information, which actually predicts based on land markers. For example, in the United States, you have empty land, vacant land, forest land, ex-urban land, and so on, which are land markers. And some of these would be as a part of the growth of the city or a suburb, actually move from vacant space to an occupied space or registered for occupation. Then it gets sold to a builder. The builder starts building either residential or commercial property, and then that gets scaled up and so on. So that kind of information needs to be tracked, because that is really where the next set of broadband terminations have to happen, next set of fiber optic installations have to happen, next set of towers have to happen, because these days most of these networks are a combination of fiber optic and wireless and radio and satellite. And also this information could potentially be sold to cellular operators, broadband service providers, including satellite providers and so on. So CoreLogic has developed this algorithm, which is an AI algorithm that actually predicts where the next set of residential or corporate data demand will come up, and actually project and forecast that the kind of data requirements, the kind of fiber optic requirements, and then extend from there and project the requirements for the next generation of data centers, where they should be coming up and so on. So that is where it's going. I do not have any relevant comparable type of information with respect to Indian markets, but I thought I would just capture all of this. I know I've not been very regular on these updates. Pardon me for that. I'm trying to build back a whole set of video courses, and apologize for the delay. Thank you so much for continuing to support. Do like and share and subscribe to my channels, and I'll continue to track there. And also, please, whenever you feel like, add a note or a comment and tell me what new areas you'd like to cover, and I'll be happy to do the same. Take care. Thank you so much. I'm ending this recording here. Good night.